Hey folks, hi, this is Ignacio with North Star Senior Advisors. Welcome to another series, North Star Presents. Today I have the pleasure of having with me Edith with the Alzheimer's Dementia Resource Center. Really quick about us, we provide a senior placement service here in Central Florida to help seniors and families transition into senior living. Edith, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for taking the time. If you don't mind letting the audience know a little bit about you and the ADRC.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. I'm Edith Gendron, the Chief of Operations with the Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center. We exist primarily to help caregivers who are caring for persons living with some form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or other age-related dementia. We do that through support groups and workshops and running the brain bank and care coaching and having resource lists. For example, if somebody calls and says, gee, I need to start considering assisted living, well, we have people we can refer them to for help with that, right? So that's some of what we do.
Okay, excellent. So you're a great resource to caregivers, families that are going through these difficult times. Excellent, excellent. And how are you guys funded? I believe you're a nonprofit.
Yeah, we're 501(c)(3). We are funded through grants. We get some grants. We have a small contract for state funding, and we receive donations from generous people. Often someone will name us as a recipient instead of flowers, when the time comes, that sort of thing. We also do a fundraiser. We have our big gala, once a year that got postponed from April to September now. We've rescheduled it for September 10th. So.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to being part of that one. Last year we went to for the first time, and it was a phenomenal event. So we're looking forward to September.
Thank you. I remember you're being there. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
So with everything going on now, with obviously COVID-19 and the isolation, social isolation, and quarantine, right? What are you seeing in terms of how families and caregivers are coping with social isolation from your perspective?
We're getting an increase in calls, for that care coaching I was talking about. And, we'll take a call from anyone just to troubleshoot or to be a resource for people to talk through things. We're getting people who are feeling the pinch of isolation. This is an isolating disease to begin with, but when you can't take your person out for a walk in a mall, or you can't just take a run to Target for something different to do, or go to one of our, our dementia-friendly dining that just started in January, and we can't do that. You can't go to your support group. These things are starting to increase the stress of an already stressful situation. So our families are calling us. They are participating in our support groups. We also have Michael's Moments that is meant for the person living with the illness in the early stages. And we're conducting those through a situation or a setup like this. We use a different program, but it's the same idea, right, where we're all kind of virtually meeting. We are doing a lot of listening. We're also doing something called telephone reassurance. And that is, if you want us to, we started with our support group folks. If you want us to, we will call you every 2 weeks to make sure you're doing okay. Just to listen, just to talk, and maybe talk you through, give you some tools and strategies for your very specific situation that you haven't had to deal with before because you've never been, closed in your house for how many days running.
Excellent. So those are great tools you guys are offering for sure. What would you say would be some good activities for families and caregivers to do with those living with Alzheimer's dementia or age-related dementia?
One of the first things when we talk about, what activity, what can we do, what can we do, is let's start with look at your person. What can they do? Okay, let's not look at our person in terms of deficits. We see that, right? We think about these illnesses, losses, and what they're taking away. But let's look at our person and say, what skills do they have? What can they do? And support them in their ability to do that. For example, It's still cool enough most days in the morning. Get out and maybe try to do some gardening, even if it's in a pot, right? Maybe you're not going to leave your person alone, but you're going to stay there and help them plant some seeds or plant some lettuce. Lettuce is great because it grows fast. So you can do those sorts of things. Remember that every single thing we do every day is an activity. So getting ready for the day, and we should be getting ready for the day. We should get dressed, right? We should act just like we have something important to do, because we do. We have an important day to get through. It's a day to live, to seek the joy. We should maybe involve our person because we have more time because we can't go anywhere. Involve our person a little more in cooking, maybe, preparing things, not so much on the stove, depending again on the person's abilities. What do you do every day that you can break off a task and help your person do? If none of that sounds plausible, because as we progress, right, things become more and more challenging, then what did your person used to like to do? Did they like to sort the mail? Did they like to cook? Could they maybe sort out a collection of dried beans? It sounds to you and I maybe a little bit like make work, but the point is, if the person feels engaged, if the person feels that this is a productive thing for me to be doing, their anxiety is going to stay down. And anxiety is what feeds confusion, and confusion is the enemy. So we want to keep our folks engaged. An important activity to experiment with until you really are confident that you've got it right is music. Okay, and people kind of look at me oddly when I say music, but find out what matters to your person. Find out what is uplifting. Don't play that sad stuff. We don't need any help with being sad and stressed, but you want to you want the music that helps a person feel cheerful. And let's dance, and let's just look for the joy in this moment today. And I'll close this whole piece by saying that it's the right here, right now. Don't worry about lunch. Don't worry about dinner. Right here, right now. Focus right here, right now, because this really is the only moment we should have.
Yeah, and I would think now, probably more than ever, that could be a real challenge when you think, at least from my perspective, when I think about it, because you have obviously the caregivers and the families. It takes a dedicated focus to do this for their loved one or the ones they're caring for. Everything you just mentioned in terms of like maybe routine and agenda. You add on now what's happening, right? Individuals are impacted by everything that's going on themselves. So I would think it's more of a taxing situation, to your point. Focus on the now, but I would think even realistically, I think it could be a little tougher now because they got their own personal stressors, to your point, right? So I agree. I think these are great tips. Any services available now for families and caregivers out there that you know of for those folks who are living with these conditions and dementias at home?
There are. But you are so right in saying that our caregivers are even more stressed. And so one of the things that we absolutely insist on with our caregivers is that they have time for themselves. Well, that's pretty hard to accomplish right now. So I'm going to encourage anyone that is hearing this that wants a few moments to themselves. I'm going to encourage them to contact us and get set up to be able to join our support groups. Go into a room and close the door and just be with us, even if you can only do it for 15 minutes. Our support groups typically run, an hour and a half, 2 hours, what they need. There are services out there. Again, we do the care coaching. You can call us. We can do this. We'll do this one-on-one. We have access to an extremely compassionate and gifted mental health counselor who has helped a number of our caregivers and persons living with the illness in the early stages through some of the trickier parts here. There are also, I mentioned the telephone reassurance. If you would like to be called or someone you think should be called, again, call us. We'll put them on our list. There is something called Meals of Love. And if you go to the Meals of Love website, it's short term just for this COVID-19 public health crisis. You can apply for restaurant meals to be delivered This is similar to Meals on Wheels, but it's a different program with a different funding stream. So that is something that is really helpful. There is also, if you go through agencies, I was going to say lead agencies, and that doesn't mean much to somebody. If you go through places like Seniors First, okay, which is a lead agency in our area that serves our counties. It would be Osceola Council on Aging in Osceola. It would be Aging Centers in Brevard. If you call those places, you can see about getting something called shopper service, where they'll actually send someone out to purchase your groceries for you and bring them to you, and then you take them at the door and bring them in and put them away. So there are services, right, that are out there to help people get through this. The day centers, of course, the adult day centers are all closed. Some of those centers are sending folks in, to qualified people in to help in the home. And that's working pretty well, but it's also doesn't do much to relieve that sense of isolation.
Okay.
So those are things. Go for walks, get outside as much as you can, obviously with social distancing or physical distancing. It's not so much about society, right? It's about being physically distant. But those are some of the things that we can offer or help you connect to.
Okay, excellent. And those resources you mentioned, for the folks that are watching, I will post here websites, phone numbers. Really quick, what's the best way, quickest way for somebody to sign up for your support group? Should they call? Should they visit the website? What would you recommend, and what's that information look like?
Right. The quickest way would be to call, and when someone calls the number I'm about to give you, they're going to get a voicemail, and that's okay. Leave your information in voicemail. Be very clear, enunciate a little, and it will roll into our emails, and one of us will call you right back. So the number is 407-436-7750. Or you can email me directly if you would like to. It's my first name, Edith, EDITH, at adrccares.org. So that's EDITH at adrccares.org. You can also go to our website and look at some things. For example, we are having a workshop this Friday. It's on medications and knowing when to use them. And the type of medications I'm talking about are medications that would help reduce anxiety and help avoid or try to mitigate the severity of symptoms with folks who are having behaviors that are distressful to them and to others. So it's that kind of a medication workshop with Dr. Melissa Agard. It's from 10 till noon, but you do have to register with your email because it's going to be done again in a format like this through something called Zoom, and we need your email to be able to link you to it. So those are some of the ways to get in touch with us if you want to connect in any way.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. So we'll post it on the video for those that are watching, so they'll have that information. One of the things that you guys are pretty big in terms of engagement and what you do as part of the ADRC is the Brain Bank research study, right? You mind sharing with us how that has been impacted now with COVID-19 for you guys?
Yeah, thank you, Ignacio, for bringing that up. As you know, the Brain Bank is a very significant, important postmortem research study, and COVID-19 has effectively suspended participation in that right now. And by that, I mean we're still enrolling people, and we are getting interest as we always do. But when we lose someone, that person, that family is no longer, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it very clearly. When we lose someone, that donation is not being accepted at this time. So even though they're enrolled, we cannot do any sort of autopsy. We are working very, very quickly with Orlando Health, Dr. Aaron Wagner in particular, trying to get things set in place. We need some different equipment to protect the pathologists that do the actual autopsies. To be able to reopen the brain bank, even when that's in place, and we're hoping that'll be within the next couple of weeks, but even with that in place, there are going to be new questions that are asked at the time of loss. And if those questions are answered in the affirmative, such as did the person have a dry cough, did the person have an unexpected temperature? I mean, you can have a temperature for many reasons, right? Did a physician determine that there was any fluid compromise in the lungs, those sorts of things? We are not going to be able to accept that donation. So that's going to be a long-term change. The primary investigator, Ron John Dwara, out of Mount Sinai, has said until there is a vaccine that will prevent the development of COVID-19, then that is going to be it going forward. So the enrollment process is the same. The donation process has been altered, and unfortunately, probably permanently.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Well, good to know. And I'm sure, folks, you guys will update your website when that changes and inform the population. So good to know. Edith, you've been great. You have a wealth of information. You guys do great things at the ADRC. So thank you for everything you're doing. Folks, again, I'll post all that information here on the video. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Edith and the Resource Center directly. So Edith, thank you again for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it. Take care.
You're welcome. Take care.